Hi there, and welcome to Meet the Leaders. I'm David Smith. It is good to have you along with us today. And we have got a great number of interesting folks stopping by. We're between the election and actually being sworn into various offices come the new year. And we are pleased to have the youngest state senator in the state of Connecticut with us today. Will Haskell is joining us. And Senator, it's great elect. It's good to have you with us. Welcome.
It's great to be here, David. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. We should say that Will has captured the interest and the emotion of the populace and has proven, as others will have this year, that Grassroots is the way to go. And we should say that the Senate area that Will is involved in is a big one. It's Westport, New Canaan, Wilton, Ridgefield, Reading, Bethel, and Weston, and that's a healthy area.
It is. It's about 100,000 people, and it's a big district. Everybody always asks where I spend the most amount of my time, and the honest answer is the car.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. I'll bet you do. We should say that Will is 22 years old, you're still 22, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Just graduated from Georgetown this past graduation season. And what made you interested in taking on somebody who's been in the seat for many years, Tony Boucher?
Sure. I think, like a lot of other people, I woke up the morning after President Trump's election, and I felt as though I had to get involved in government and get involved in the fight against his agenda. I really do believe that fight starts at the state and local level. So I took a really hard look at who my representatives were in government. I looked at my town officials, people who I largely agreed with. I looked at my state representative, somebody I really respected and admired. And then I saw in the state Senate a voice that I didn't think represented the values of my community, somebody who was voting against paid family leave, somebody who thought that we went too far in regulating guns, somebody who voted with the Republican Party 97% of the time. I was frankly shocked, a little embarrassed that I hadn't been aware as I was growing up that this was my conservative voice in the state Senate. Yeah. So I had no plan to run for the state Senate, but I started to ask around and find out, hey, who is running? Who's challenging Senator Boucher? And what I found out pretty quickly was that many thought that the seat wasn't winnable, that it had been, my opponent had been there for 22 years, as long as I'd been alive, and more importantly, it hadn't been held by a Democrat since the 1970s. So I knew it was going to be an uphill battle, but when I found out that nobody else was interested in stepping forward, I thought, you know what, this is a time in my life, and more importantly, a time in the nation's history to do something that's perhaps a little unusual, perhaps a little difficult, but to really make sure that we can be proud of our government at every single level. So I decided to step forward and run.
Well, it was a start for you in politics. Well, not exactly, because you had been working for political elections in the past. You worked with Chris Murphy.
That's exactly right. I had the unbelievable opportunity when I was in high school and college to intern for folks I really admired. Congressman Jim Himes, Senator Chris Murphy. They've been mentors to me, helped advise all along the way as I had this crazy idea to run for the state Senate. But I'll tell you what's so cool. When I was in high school and when I was in college, I wanted to work for the folks who you saw on TV, for the bigger names in Connecticut politics. What I'm so moved by is when I decided to run for the state Senate, all sorts of high school students and college students signed up to work on my campaign. I can't tell you how many days I got into our campaign office, and I was the oldest one there at 22. We had 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds working every single day after school, coming in during their free periods to lend a hand. And the fact that they wanted to get involved on a down-ballot race like mine speaks to something really special that happened in the 2018 election, where every generation decided to get off the sidelines and get involved.
Well, and the turnout, as you suggest, was huge. It was a very, very active election cycle.
It was unbelievable turnout. You know, normally we see a really sharp drop-off between presidential years and midterm years to the tune of, 20,000 voters sometimes. What we saw in this most recent election was so exciting in that we only lost 5,013 voters between 2016 and 2018 in the 26th district. That was so exciting. I knew something special was happening when I got to the polls on Election Day at 6 a.m., and I was not the first one there. I met so many folks who were literally running because they couldn't wait to vote. I met two people who told me that their very first vote was cast for Harry Truman, but they've never been more excited for an election than this one.
Well, now, one of the things that you found, and I suggested Grassroots earlier on, You really did do the old stomping around, door knocking way of meeting folks, and that was appreciated.
Absolutely. Door knocking was crucial to my campaign. It took a toll on my shoes, as you can see. But I knocked on around 40 doors a day, rain or shine. And when you're knocking in towns like Reading or Wilton, where every house seems to be uphill, it makes a big impact on people that you took the time to come to their door and listen to them. You know, I started every conversation at every door with the question, what's the most important issue for you? And making myself a little bit more vulnerable because I didn't have the answer to every issue that
Sure.
they raised. It made me a much better candidate because I learned what's actually on people's mind. I didn't just spit out my talking points. I actually learned that too many parents have a pit in their stomach when their kid gets on the school bus in the morning. Too many parents have had to choose between advancing in their career and starting a family. Too many folks are worried about selling their homes, and they're frustrated about how their commute has gotten slower since the 1950s. I learned so much from door knocking that as much as it helped the campaign and in spreading the word about my candidacy, it also helped me as a candidate and now as an elected official do my job.
Was there any consistency between all of these? They're not as diverse as many areas towns are, but was there any consistency with the folks in all of those towns as to their major concerns?
Well, it was really interesting. The number one thing that people mentioned was common sense gun control. They are looking for gun violence prevention out of the next General Assembly, and it will be my priority. My very first bill in the next legislative session will have to do with gun violence prevention. I also heard a lot from folks that it's too hard to vote in Connecticut. So my goal when I get to Hartford in January is to make it harder to buy a gun and easier to vote. I will be proposing early voting in Connecticut. I had a conversation with the Secretary of State last week. We're going to work on digitizing and centralizing the absentee ballot process because when I was away at college, it was a real hassle to vote, right? You had to go to the library, print out a form, mail it into your local registrar or town clerk who you had to look up. It's really not as easy as it should be. What I'd like to do is centralize that process into the Secretary of State's website so that every person, especially young people, can just pull out their iPhones and request an absentee ballot online in 2 minutes. There's precedent for this. In Virginia, not exactly a Democratic state, really a purple state.
Right.
It's exceptionally easy to get an absentee ballot. They've made it so because you can do it all online through a citizen portal. We need to bring that to Connecticut, not because I'm a capital D Democrat, but because I'm a lowercase d Democrat. I believe that in a democracy, we're better off when more people participate, when every generation has an opportunity to make their voice heard.
That has been a battle, a hue and cry for throughout this election and every election cycle. As a matter of fact, those who think that it's going to be leading itself to illicit voting and so forth, it really doesn't happen.
No, that's exactly right. And, you know, I participated, I think, in 8 or 9 debates. And to the League of Women Voters' credit, they brought up early voting at every debate. It's really a priority for the League of Women Voters.
It's a priority for so many people. Listen, we want to thank you very much for stopping by. I know you have got an incredibly busy time before you get sworn in and start up in Hartford. And if you think your shoes wear out fast, your tires are going to wear out even faster going back and forth between Fairfield County. But it's great to see you, Will. Congratulations.
David, thank you so much for having me.
Will Haskell, Senator-elect, going off to Hartford before too long, 22 years old. For Meet the Leaders, I'm David Smith.